Welcome, Buff fans, to another episode of the Nameless Show with Brian Howell and Matt Smith. Nameless only for the last time because we're going to come up with a name, Matt. We're going to do that almost right off the bat here. But first off, welcome. How are you? Had you recovered from this weekend?
Yeah, that was a late one. That was a
Yeah,
late one. And then come to find out, we've got another late one, next week, which was just awesome. I'm sure Coach Prime is thrilled about that. It
yeah,
was obnoxious. Okay, I don't want to do this for too long, but it was obnoxiously late. And as I'm getting older and older, like you could have asked 25-year-old Matt, 8:15K. Oh no, 8:15, that's fine. You know, almost 32-year-old Matt walking in that game at 7 o'clock was like, okay, this is obnoxiously late to be starting a football game. I get it now. I get it why everybody complains about it. And I've just arrived at being old, which is what I've decided. And yeah, I didn't go to bed till 7 a.m. after getting all my stuff done on my channel at Real Matt Smith, Matt with one T. Shout out.
yeah. That's around when I went to bed too. And I don't want to hear you talking about being old because I've
I
got you
know.
by quite a bit. In fact, the next home game, Cincinnati, which was announced today, is the 8:15 start. That'll be my last game that I will cover in my 40s.
Wow. How
So
about
they
that?
they, they go into a bye week right after
How
that, and
about
I
that?
will I will turn 50
Me
during the bye
complaining
week.
about being old. And
Yeah,
you've got 50 right around the corner. How about that? Which
yeah.
which day officially?
It'll be that next Tuesday, the 29th.
The 29th. Are you so you are early Scorpio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
so am I. That's probably why we get along so well.
yeah, so yeah. When's your birthday?
November 20th.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
there you go. Sure everybody's thrilled at the
Yeah,
Zodiac talk.
yeah. I'm sure we're gonna get a whole bunch of uh
Subscribe. I know you
subscribe
want to hear this every
for
week.
our birthdays. Why don't you subscribe, everybody?
That's right. That's right. No,
So,
that's
yeah,
awesome though. 50. Are you anxious at all?
no, it's whatever.
No.
It's
It's
just
whatever. How did it
just
feel turning in 40?
that's fine.
It was
I
fine.
think 50 is more of a thing where you're like, man, that's
Yeah,
getting kind of old.
I
But
know.
that's again where it was like, that game on Saturday night, it was like, oh, I
I know.
literally like there was one point where uh, nothing. I don't know if Buff fans want to even hear all this stuff, but so
They'll be
those
fine.
late games, I will typically,
They can
you do
just
the
skip ahead.
right. Yeah, I'll typically do the post game press conference, and then when it's that late, I'll just go home. I'll grab my stuff and I'll go home and work rather than stay in the press box. And just for those Buff fans know, like I finish about 9 hours after kickoff, 9 to 10 hours after kickoff. So when it's an eight p.m. kickoff or 8:15, 6 something in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, but so I'm home and I'm working. I'm going through all the quotes and everything. And there was one point, Matt, it was like 3:30, and I was like, I just need like to shut my eyes for 15 minutes. I literally, there's a couch.
That's bold.
There's a couch down
That's a
here.
bold move.
I know, but I was like, but that tells you how old I'm getting. So I
Yeah.
literally laid down and I set my alarm for 15 minutes later, and that was able to get me through the last little stretch. So,
Wow. That's impressive.
yeah.
See, I can't pack it in until I'm packing it in for the night
Oh, I
because
was
once
worried.
once
I was worried.
oh yeah, I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were. At 3:40, you want to know what I was doing? I reopened it because there was so much on my mind. I had so much more to get off. So I ended up putting out two videos on whatever, I think I even said in the video, it's 4 o'clock in the morning right now. So forgive me if some of
Yeah,
this doesn't make sense. But there was just so much to get into. It was a complicated night with a wild swing of emotions and just a lot to reflect on, certainly. When games, and I don't know how you find it, but when games get so chaotic down the stretch there, I'll have my instant reaction. And then almost an hour later, like all of the gray area just starts to fill in for me. And so afterwards, I was like, no, I got more to say. So I
yeah.
ended up putting out two videos after that. And then, yeah, yesterday was normally I'm glued to all the NFL games because I'm a huge NFL guy. And yesterday I found myself struggling through the early window because I'd gotten like 3 hours of sleep. So yeah,
Well, that
yeah,
is
they're
what
uh they're rough.
the one nice thing for me is that I don't give a crap about the NFL. I don't watch it at
Right,
all anymore.
right,
So
right.
I didn't care about missing anything.
Yeah.
And I haven't paid attention to the NFL in a long time, in several years. But I will say I was very grateful for that one and the Cincinnati one coming up, that they're at home at least, that I don't
Yeah.
have to get up the next day and go get to the airport and fly somewhere. So if we're going to have those games, I'd much rather them be, at home. and they're going to Arizona this week, which means we're going to Arizona. And Arizona games are always late. And so when I saw 2 p.m., it's like, man, it's gonna be hot. But I'm like, thank you. I'm glad that that one's a normal time on the road. So I would much rather go home and be at home for those than fly.
I think I'm the other way. I think I'd rather have those on the road because then you just stay up all night long. Then you just don't sleep, and then you sleep on the plane. I can do
Yeah,
that anyway. Are you
I
asleep on the
guess.
plane, guy?
I never have been, but sometimes you're so tired
Oh, I'm
after some
instantly.
of these road
Wheels
games
up.
that it's like, yeah, I'm out.
Wheels up.
So
No
yeah,
problem.
and you're right. I mean, there is something to be said for if it's a road game, your Sunday's sort of half ruined anyway because you're traveling. You
That's
might as
right.
well
I'd rather
just
just might as well just
right,
get home early like we
right,
do
right,
from
right,
Florida.
right.
Anyway.
Well, what do you want? What do you want to do first? You want to recap the game, or do you want to go through show names?
I
Because
think we
we've
ought to do the names. Let's get the names out of the
okay.
way. And you know what? You said this is the last nameless episode, but I figure whatever we land on here, we just name this
Well,
one.
yeah, that's true. It's nameless as we're starting this, but as I
Oh, sure.
post it,
Yeah.
it'll have the name.
Okay.
So, yeah, but
I'm curious.
we have told fans that hey, throw it out there, give us some name ideas. We need a name for this thing. And Matt hasn't heard any of these unless you read the comments, but I
Nope.
just went through the comments and I wrote down the ones that I saw. And so
Okay.
I've got three
These
that
are
I
all, by the way, hold on. Sorry. These are all fan submissions, right?
correct. They
Okay.
were
All right.
all they're all fan comments from last week's video.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. Because the one thing we
every
decided
single
is
one of
we're
them.
not picking.
Right. Every
Yeah.
single one of them is from last week's video, a comment from somebody.
Okay.
So I've got three that
Okay.
I looked at and says, yeah, those are my top three.
Well,
But
they
let's
can't
just
all be good.
yeah,
That's what I
let's
know.
see where you land. So
Okay.
let me just go through.
Okay.
I'm gonna yeah, let's just go through. Okay.
Yeah.
Two for the herd.
Okay. Nah.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know. Two for the like two for like a play on two for the money. Okay. All right. Like I
Yeah.
see it. Nah.
I
Yeah.
see it, but I'm kind of nah.
Yeah. I'm a no on that one.
Okay. Front range roundup.
Nah.
I don't like that one because we're only talking about the buffs and not everybody in the front range.
Yeah.
If we were
Agreed.
talking about everybody, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flat
Who
iron
wants to
buffs
know that
take.
UNC Greeley got their first win the other night? Shout out
Right.
to them for snapping the losing streak.
As a
What'd you say?
major underdog, by the way.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
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 yeah. Flat iron buffs take.
yeah. It's too much. Too
A little much,
much. A
yeah.
little much.
Okay. Two men and the buff. And
See,
the
I like
buff.
see, I like two men in the buffs. I think that's a little funnier. You could put two men in the buffs on the board for me.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
In the but
move
two
down
men
here.
and the buff. Like it's not just a singular. It's a
Right.
plural.
And maybe they said buffs and I wrote buff. I don't know.
Okay.
The Buff 'em Out podcast.
No,
Okay. Colorado Conversations with Brian and Matt.
too much.
Too
I
long. Too
appreciate it.
long.
Yeah, too much.
Riding with Ralphie.
Writing or writing?
Riding, RIDING.
Nah. Mm-mm.
There's a lot of fans will say they're not riding with Ralphie, they're haters. So we
Yeah,
can't have that
exactly.
one.
No.
Um,
Or
yeah,
we're homers.
that's right.
Because we're riding with Ralph.
We're riding Ralphie.
No,
Smith and Howell.
I mean, what are we? I mean, what are we? Some sort of specialty firearm, like an old
Right.
school, like
Right,
Smith
right,
and
right.
Howell.
Right.
I mean, it would be simple and simplistic. I guess you could put
Yeah.
it on the board.
I like the simplicity of it. You know, that's the only thing I like about it, the simplicity
Okay.
of it.
Okay. Keep going.
Baseline buffs.
Baseline. No, no, thanks. I mean,
Yeah,
neither
it
one
was
of us
kind of
even lives that direction.
I think it was kind of a shout out to baseline where the road over there.
Oh no, definitely, I understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this is the beauty of
Um,
this is if you submitted it, you should get a chance to see our authentic reactions to your suggestions, good
There you
or
go.
bad.
There you go.
Okay. Then
Um,
and so you're getting them. Yeah.
Attitude and the altitude.
Oh. Worst one yet. Okay, next.
It might be the most accurate when it comes to you, at least. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks, Brad.
Um,
Uh,
but yeah, there's already an altitude
yeah.
in Denver. So another simple one here, buff talk.
Mm, I mean, it's on the board. It's on the board because it's just
Okay.
easy.
Okay.
So it's a little laissez-faire, but I mean,
It's a little simplistic.
a little bit.
Buff's gone wild.
Woo! No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah. We're two of the least wild people
Yeah. We're
in the press
very
box. So
predictable. Yeah.
okay, primetime night owls.
I mean, honestly, probably the best descriptive of what we are, but I don't I don't think it's on the board. I don't think it's on the
I
board.
I have it on the board
You have it on the board. Okay. Why? Explain.
because
Make your case. Make your case.
prime time because that's
No, I
what
get
we're
that.
in the
Yeah, no.
CU, right?
Right.
And night owls, I mean, we just talked about what time we go to bed,
That's
and
true.
we've mentioned before, and this is probably why this person said it, was that we've mentioned before how we're night owls, and we sometimes will text each other, midnight or whatever,
Yeah.
certain things. So it
Yeah.
fits. So I sort of
Okay.
like it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
I hear you. I hear
All
you.
right. Boulder Boys.
We need like leather jackets
Right, right.
if we're the Boulder Boys.
Like the Van Buren boys
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
Seinfeld episode.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was their sixth president. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And the original Buffs.
The OBs.
Now,
I feel like here's what I have to say about the OBs podcast.
okay.
We'd have to do like we'd have to do a full like media roundtable with everybody in there who's been in there for a long time. If you call it the OBs, because you can't rule anybody out, which actually might be a fun idea in general if we did something like that one day. But nah, I can't get behind the OBs because the OBs are already a group. I mean they own that, so no.
I see. I like it
Okay.
because of the fact that you and I are original Buff
I
reporters.
mean that's true.
And
Yeah, that's true. I
and
mean
there's
we've been there
frankly
a
that
while.
if you look around the room, there's not a lot of them that have been around as long as us. I mean, Adam has.
I think and Ryan, right? I mean, I mean,
Yeah. Although, and this is no disrespect to Ryan, because he's obviously a huge Buff
but I'm
fan,
saying
but
he yeah, but I also took time away too, right? I mean,
true.
so I would just say people who have been around the longest is kind of what I was talking about.
True.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, as
Ryan has
far as
been there a long time.
that's all I'm saying. And then
So it's
obviously,
it's
other guys.
probably us four, Adam, Ryan,
I would
you
say,
and me,
yeah,
that have
yeah.
been there
As
the
far as like the
longest.
regulars, yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I liked it because of that, and
That
because
would
of
be
the
a fun.
play
That would be a
on
fun pod too.
the OBs, the players over there. That
Okay.
there's not a whole lot of them left.
Is that the end of list?
That's the end of the list.
Okay, I have one that just came to me.
Okay.
Okay. What about you heard? Except no A. The only problem with that is that in the algorithm, it's always going to be search instead for you heard. You know what I'm saying with the A in there? But I kind of like you heard.
Yeah, but we can't do that if it wasn't submitted by the fans.
Oh, good point. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're very good point.
So here's the ones
Fans
that
are going to be
we've
like, that's the best one.
yeah,
Anyway,
here's
go ahead.
here's the ones we've settled that
Yeah.
one of us has put on the board.
Okay.
Buff Talk,
Okay.
Smith and Howell.
How
Those are
about
the
the
two
prime?
ones.
You know what? Let's go with the one that's the most on the nose. I kind of like it now. The Primetime Night Owls, was that what it
Yeah.
was? I
Yeah.
mean, that's so ridiculous and it's kind of cheesy to me, which is why I
Yeah.
think it's the funniest because it's like why would you do that? But I
Right.
like that. And we don't film at night either. So
Yeah.
it makes even less sense, which is why I think it's kind of perfect.
We could post it at
What do
night.
you What are your thoughts? What so explain all right, last one again. Last ones again.
Yeah. So okay, Buff Talk and Smith and Howell. I think both of us like them, but they're too simplistic.
Yeah.
So if we're narrowing down those are the
How about
two off. Those are off the
just
board.
the Night Owls?
You gotta have prime time in there though.
Okay.
All right.
All
two
right.
two men in the Buffs.
Maybe that's the best one.
Mm,
Okay. All right. You're
I don't
more
like
a
that as
primetime
much.
night. You're more a Night Owls guy. Okay.
Boulder
Gotta be
Boys.
a collab.
Boulder Boys. I don't like that one as much.
Boulder Boys is out.
Yeah. Okay. So then we're down to the original Buffs, which we agreed. I agree with you. I had that on my top three, but I agree with you that we can't do that and not
They own
have
that.
not
Right.
have.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even that they own it. I think I agree with you that more so that we can't do that when there's
Without everybody else.
Adam and
Agreed.
there's Ryan. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Agreed.
so
Agreed.
all right. So that means we're down to two men in the Buffs and primetime night owls.
I'm gonna let you call it. I'm good with either one of those.
I'm gonna go primetime night owls.
All right.
What do you
Woo!
think? You good with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just
That's
because
fine.
it is,
Uh-huh.
it is probably the most appropriate. I mean, we're covering prime time, the Buffs era, and
Uh-huh.
we've told everybody we're night owls. So
There we go.
Yeah.
That's perfect. It's going
Okay.
to make absolutely no sense and it's going to look strange,
No,
which is
no.
why I love it, which is
It
why I love it.
doesn't.
And the fans picked it. So
It
there you go.
doesn't. It doesn't make no sense. It makes plenty of sense. And I did write down that was from at Brian C8895. And
Shout out Brian C.
I don't like it because it's somebody named Brian. It's
I think now it's biased. Rigged. It's a rigged vote.
right. It's rigged.
There is rigged.
That's my burner account.
What's your middle name, Charles?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, well there
So
you go. The
pri
Primetime Night Owls.
primetime
Is it
night
the?
owls.
Is it the? Or is it
Nope.
just Primetime
Just
Night Owls?
primetime night
Fine,
owls.
fine. Okay, as long as I
Okay.
know what to call it, and people are gonna be
Okay.
like, "What?" And I'm gonna be like, "Well, it's fan selected." So
Yeah.
there you go.
Band selected. There you go. Good job, Brian C.
Good job, Brian C.
All right.
Okay,
So we got a name.
well that's
Uh
been established.
that's been established. And nobody's watching anymore at this
Right.
point.
Well, they've skipped ahead. They've skipped
Right.
ahead. For the 10
Right.
of you that actually suggested it and enjoy Brian and I as people, they're still watching. But
Right.
that's it. Yeah.
Well, except for
Well,
the
you
ones
know what?
when
We
we
ought to put like an automatic chapter on YouTube so people
yeah,
just be like, let me just get out of here.
when we
Anyway,
threw
go
out
ahead.
their name, they probably stopped watching, but that's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's right.
Um, so all right.
Yeah.
Obviously we were night owls on Saturday night, as we said.
Yeah. Hey, we just
Let's
said
re
we stayed up till 7 o'clock in the morning. So
right.
yeah.
All right, let me get your thoughts on the game the other night. Just in general, I guess a
Hmm.
day and a half later, what are your thoughts on that game?
Heartbreaker. So close. You had it. I still feel very similar to how I felt the other night. And I think I even said it when I kind of put a quarter in the machine on my second video on my channel. I think I said, this is one where when I asked Shador after the game, I said, because I felt like it was needed to be acknowledged that they do still have everything in front of them. And when you lose one that's that heartbreaking, the one thing you don't want to happen is the team to splinter because, you were just so close to everything that you want and then bam. But you're still in a good spot. Now you just have to fight and claw. And you're
Right.
basically in the same position you were before. But before, you had a little bit more margin for error as far as the Big 12 race goes. Now
Right.
you have much less, and you're probably going to need
Hmm.
some help.
Right.
Whereas you controlled your destiny before, you don't anymore. And Shador called it the 24-hour rule. And maybe they can have that. But I think when you lose like that, when you blow it, that takes like 48 to really kind of just digest. At least in my opinion, everyone's different. And I just felt like, hey man, you played probably like a C+ game and had a bunch of injuries and still should have won and still should have beat that team. And that's the hardest thing to stomach is now you have that's just like Tad always says, like Tad Boyle always says, like that's a blown opportunity that you never get back. Now, how do you make it? How do you make that up? That's kind of how I feel
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. I agree with you. I will say I don't have any concerns about them splintering after that one. I think that was more of a galvanizing loss than a splintering loss. I mean, the Stanford game last year felt like a splintering loss, right?
I agree.
That's one that like, what do we do from here? If we couldn't finish out that game, this is one that I think you can look at and say, and we saw Coach Prime addressing the team on Sunday, on Well Off Media, where he said, look, guys, we didn't even play very well. And we lost half our receiving core, and you still almost won that football game. I think they should take a lot of confidence off of that one. And yes, you said they blew it, and in a way they did, but I don't look at it as them blowing that game. I mean, I think they had chances, and they probably could have, and you could argue they should have won it. But I think you have to give credit to K-State too. I mean, that might be the best team in the conference. BYU and Iowa State are up there as well. But K-State, for as much as people in the comments or last week are like K-State's no good. Yes, they are. They're a very good football team. You know, and that might be the best team CU plays this year. And so you lose that one, it's heartbreaking for sure. But I don't feel like they blew it. I feel like they just came up short and missed some opportunities.
I mean, they gave up a 3-play, 84-yard drive in like
They did.
51 seconds.
They
To
did.
me, that's the definition of blowing it. And Shador had the ball in his hands, and all he needed was a timeout with like over 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
Is that the first time they haven't converted in one of those situations when they've needed a score late in the game? I think it
Well,
might have been.
no. I mean, Stanford
Well,
last year.
I guess that's a good point. Okay. So the
They've
second so the
had,
second
yeah,
time. So the second time. Yeah. Well, I guess I kind of just meant like when you needed a score to push it to OT at least. But yeah, I'm with you there. It's probably the second one in a late game moment that they didn't come up with. Most of the other ones
yeah,
they've come up with.
right,
That's just the truth. And I think, kind of reflecting back, the reason I think, in my opinion, they blew that moment, and listen to Coach Prime afterwards, he felt the same way, talking about we should have had that one, and it
yeah,
sucks because we should have had that one.
yeah,
Especially he knew that they didn't play their best and had all those injuries and lost Travis on top of that. And so the reason why I bring that up is that it's just one of those that just sticks in your craw. Like to me, I always felt like as a competitor, first of all, you remember your losses more than your wins, and your close losses that really mean something.
right,
Those wake you up at night sometimes, and I think that could be one of those because you had it, you shouldn't have had it, but then you were there because of like divine intervention. The moment that Colton Hood picked off the pass, why the hell did Kansas State go for it on fourth down?
right,
I thought for sure they were lining up to try and hard count to draw Colorado offside to extend the
yeah,
drive. I thought for sure. Then they took the timeout, and I'm like, okay, well, now he's just going to roll out the kicker because that kid's got a leg.
yeah,
And I mean, he was booming them basically into the first row on kickoffs, which how nice would that be? Anyway, but I've thought for sure, just take the field goal. Just take
right,
the, and he didn't.
yeah,
And he got greedy and it burned him. And
right,
the fact that, like the winning percentage alone on that play, what a drastic swing that must have been if you kind of think about it, right? Because, for sure you're going in and you're going to beat Colorado if you just take the field goal, in my opinion, because, it's kind of late in the game for two scores. And then all of a sudden, the situation completely flips, and you knew Avery Johnson was going to be due for one. And there's Colton Hood coming in for Travis Hunter, like the storybook moment. I have never heard that's as loud as I've heard Folsom. Like that's as loud as the Baylor game finished to me. That was insane.
yeah,
And then you convert, and then it was almost like you were caught up in the moment and in the electricity of the crowd so much that the defense kind of let their guard down because how could that happen? And they didn't have enough help, at least in my opinion, on the backside
yeah.
in that situation. So tough one,
Well,
Brian. I just think it's a tough one.
I will say this. I'll defend Kleiman a little bit on that field goal decision or not field goal decision based on
Right.
this. It was 24-21 at the time. K-State was
Yeah.
leading.
Yeah.
You kick the field goal, you're up by 6.
Yeah.
And I think you still at that point, what was there? There would have been under 4 minutes left. At
Yeah.
that point, if you're climbing, you're thinking up by 6 is not enough with Shador Sanders on the other side. If
I
Shador leads me
guess.
down to a touchdown, we lose this game by 1. So I understand him like saying, we need a touchdown and get up by 10, and
They
then the
just didn't
game
have
is
their dude. They just didn't have their dudes. But I mean,
right.
you're betting on Shador getting down the field in that situation. I agree with you.
But we've seen Shador enough that I would be worried about that if I'm the opposition, right?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
like you said, it's rare that he doesn't convert in those opportunities. So I understand it from that point. And I will say too, I thought they did a great job. The play call, they were running on CU all night. Then all of a sudden they just start putting it in the air, and it was like,
Well, it
whoa,
paid off at the
it
end.
paid off.
Yeah.
And
Well, the ironic part is this is the wheel route that they hit. They dropped like a couple of possessions before, and if they hit that,
right,
the game probably is never even as close as it was.
yeah,
So I mean, there was definitely, I thought overall, it was probably the worst game from Colorado's defensive line I've seen this season. They were
yeah,
getting manhandled all night. And DJ Giddens, I don't know, you tell me, but he's probably the best offensive player they've seen to this point. He's a star. I mean,
oh
he
yeah,
is
yeah.
so good.
That's what I mean. That's what I said about UCF coming in. I thought RJ Harvey coming in, I'm like, he's the best back they've seen. And then
Mhm.
this last week, I'm like, no, this guy's now the best back they've seen. Like, this is the best one they've seen. And he looked like it. And so, yeah, I give him a ton of credit. He's a really good back. And I've, because Ollie Gordon's not doing anything this year, I'm going to say that he's probably the best they're going to see. Gordon's not doing anything this year. So
No,
he's certainly capable of getting it going and being that type of guy by the time they get to see you. But the other thing too is, Matt, there's been a lot of talk about that last play, the no call pass interference. Um, uh, I'll get your thoughts in a second. I will say, yes, I thought it was interference, but to me, my bigger issue with that play was it's 4th and 5, and you've got some time. Why are you taking the home run shot? That quick game has been working all night long. Why not throw a 6-yard pass and just move the chains, then take your shot? I didn't like that play call right there, or that decision, whether it was Shador making that choice, whether it was Pat Shermer. I didn't love the play call when you just need to move the chains and keep this drive going. That was and to do make it all or nothing on that deep shot, I thought was pretty risky and it didn't work out.
Yeah, I was actually standing right behind Shador at that moment. That ball had to come out. The problem
Yeah.
is the play call more than it was the throw. Like I
That's what I
had
mean.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, I had no
Yeah.
issues with the throw. I mean, Adam was standing right there next to me. That ball had to be out now. Like had to be out. And considering I thought he made a great play, it should have been pass interference. However,
Yeah.
it's also like end of game scenario. It's not so egregious to the point where you have to throw the flag. I thought it definitely is by definition. He restricted Shepard's movement. It absolutely should have been thrown, but like it wasn't so bad to the point where like everybody in the stadium is whoa, it wasn't really like
Right.
one of those. And so you kind of get the no call there. And I was listening to Joel Klatt on his show the other day, and he was like, "Hey, that's why the conference officials need to be national because conference officials tend to protect better teams." And I'm like, I don't know, I'm not getting that far into it, Joel. Like I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. I thought it was a call that in the heat of the moment, I guess they said it was uncatchable, which yeah, it was because he was restricted from coming back to the
Right.
ball.
Right.
That's by definition pass interference. So again, I didn't have a good angle on it on the field, so I didn't know. Um, but I thought personally, Brian, that this was. Remember what I told you? I think I talked to you this week about it. That I was concerned when Pat Shermer told us, at the bye week, that he looked at his tendencies, evaluated them, and then did it differently at UCF. But, they're primarily a 10 personnel team, is what he said. And
Yeah.
they went back to it, and it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's what I told you. I think I told you after that. I was like, I didn't like that because if that maybe that's like a smokescreen, but I didn't like that. And maybe they thought they had just shown too much 11 that Kansas State was going to be ready for their 11. So let's go back to the 10. And maybe that
Right.
was the thinking there. So I can't really blame them if that was the thinking. But the 11 has been so effective. And even 12, they showed us one play in 12 when on the Augusta touchdown. But
Right.
I thought it was the worst outside of Nebraska, probably the worst called game. And it's tough for me to go, this is on Shermer and this is on Shador because from what I understand, Shador has a lot of control at the
Yeah.
line of scrimmage.
Hmm.
And so I think it was just a bad night, let's call it from the coalition overall, that still resulted in Shador being 34 of 40 for 388, three touchdowns and an interception. Like that is how good he is. Okay.
Yeah.
And I always laugh when people are talk to me about criticizing Shador because I tell people I have as high of an opinion of who Shador Sanders is as a player of just about any I've met. I think he's going to be a superstar in the NFL. Like I
Yeah.
I believe in him wholeheartedly. I just have a high standard, so I expect a lot from the number one overall pick. And I know he does of himself as well. There wasn't enough quick game to your point, and I'll wrap up by saying I did see I think the slant was there. They need to do a better job of dialing in their quick game because it's a little all over the map right now. Like they need better drive starters. They need
Mhm.
better plays on like 2nd and 5 because look at Shador's touchdown to LeJontay when he just leaked off the edge. I mean, that's all, him making a play. All you got to do is get these guys the ball in a position to do something with it. And they got
Right.
to do that a little tighter.
Well, and that's why I wish they would have done that on that fourth down play. And I agree with you. I'm not complaining about Shador at all. I mean, he made a phenomenal throw on that play to Will
It was
Shepherd.
great. Yeah.
It's pass interference, in my opinion. So it should have worked out, but
Yep.
I'm still nitpicking and saying I wish they would have thrown a 5-6 yard pass somewhere across, a slant, something in the flat, whatever, just to get the first down because you had time and you also didn't need a touchdown there. You just needed to get in field goal range. Now you want the touchdown and don't go to overtime, but that was my issue. So I guess I agree with you in that, yeah, I didn't think it was the greatest called game. I think that I agree with you. That game and Nebraska are, I think, the two worst called games at this point. And frankly, if like you said, if they're worried about like, well, we showed too much 11, Kansas State's gonna be ready for that. Okay, let them be ready.
Stop it.
Go stop it. When you've had success in it, keep going with it. I mean, it changed the game for them at UCF when they were in the 11 personnel. And I think I was
Hell,
telling
go
you,
12. Go
or
12
12, right?
sometimes. Like, show me wrinkles. Like that's the type of
Especially,
stuff I expected out of the bye.
especially when you're down Jimmy and Travis in the second half. And instead of rolling out these young receivers, which I know you're confident in, maybe tighten it up a little bit and go 11, and go with three receivers and get Savell Smalls in there. Um, you know, I haven't looked at this week's yet on this, but I think I told you this last week. I looked at like how they ran against UCF. Okay, when they were in 10 personnel, they only ran four times. I'm talking about handoffs to running backs. 4 carries, 6 yards.
Yeah.
When they ran in 11 personnel, 17 carries, 104 yards.
Yep.
And then 12 personnel, the only time they ran 12 personnel was the three final plays of the game when they handed off to Charlie. 3 carries, 11 yards, but 17 carries for 104. I'll take that every day from the running backs. And I just wish they would have done more of that. I don't know how much 11. I have to go back and watch it. I know Savell Smalls only played, I think, 14 snaps or something like that the other night. And I tweeted this out the other day. There's a couple guys that I want to see more of on the field offensively. It's Savell Smalls and it's Isaiah Augustive. And I think those two guys are such a key for them. Isaiah Augustive is their best running back, in my opinion. And it's crazy to me that he had 3 carries the other night.
Yeah. I don't get it. It's got to be a practice thing with Coach Prime. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. And the reason I even bring that up is because every time I've had personnel questions about, hey, why isn't this guy playing or why isn't that guy playing? Every time we've asked about it in the last year and a half, it's directly related to what they've been doing in practice. Because my eye test, it's just not close. And look, this isn't the best run blocking offensive line either. And when you're constantly, as you just brought up, running out of 10 personnel, there's just not many different ways you can run the football. But when you're out of 11, you put the defense, to use Joe Klatt's word again, in conflict because they don't know what to expect. So that half a second of hesitation, and, even Shedeur said, look, we're down multiple scores. We've got to go away from that. There was part of that where I thought, hey, the way they're doing it in 10 personnel, go. If that's all you're going to do, go away from that. Go away from it because it's not working. And it just wasn't, Brian. Like it wasn't. And there were a couple times where I was watching, I was like, hey, pepper in a run, but they weren't using Savell and they kept bringing out Dallin. And I think Dallin's a really, really nice young man. I just don't think he's their best option. But I will say in pass protection, he probably is, and that's why they feel like they need him. If Isaiah's not ready, get him ready. That's kind of where I'm at with it halfway through the year. Like if he's not doing it in practice, and maybe they are. So I don't, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but like I would be kind of holding his hand through some of this. You don't really have time to wait. That's a guy who has a home run hitting potential. And like if you want to pepper some carries with Dallin, and I think that's fine, especially in passing situations, I think that's not a bad idea. But I would just use him more as your primary runner for sure. I think he deserves it. But it's got to be a practice thing. That's all I could say.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And I'll say this too. I understand if you're down multiple scores, it doesn't lend itself to run the ball. But as I'm looking back at the play-by-play, they weren't down multiple scores very long. K-State takes the 21-7 lead, and CU immediately responds, and it's all through the air, which is fine.
Well, that was their best drive of the game.
Right. It's all through the air, and they score, and now it's a one-score game again. And then K-State goes and gets a field goal. So now you're down 10. But you got the whole quarter, and then you go and make it a 3-point game. So they weren't down multiple scores very, very long, but they still just went away from that run too quickly, in my opinion. To me, the multiple scores things, if you're down 21, yes, you can't run the ball. But when you're down 7 or you're down 10 or whatever, you can still run the football. There's plenty of time left. And so I want to see more of that. I loved what they were doing for 3 games. CSU, Baylor, UCF. They did a great job running the football. Great by their standards, not K-State great, but they did a great job mixing in the run. I didn't like how they got away from it this week. I thought that cost them the game potentially, or at least a better shot to win the game. And I think they need to do it going forward. But I'll say this too: you got to give K-State credit because I think that's a really good defensive front, and K-State was just better than them in the trenches. And that, to me, was the biggest difference in the game, was that K-State was better in the trenches.
Period. Physicality. And let's just talk about that because Colorado's come a really long ways. And I brought this up the other night. Like they've come a really long ways to this point, which is definitely worth commending. They're just not there yet with some of the better Big 12 programs who have just done this year over year. And, I mean, look at Kansas State and their draft history and their development history. They're like a line farm on both sides of the
Right.
ball. Like that's what they do really well. They're built from the inside out primarily. And so it it translated. It translated
Yeah.
and still they should have won the game if they didn't have
Right.
a couple of bad breakdowns defensively, which is why to me they did blow it. It was a heartbreaker because it wasn't one that you were supposed to win, but you were in the driver's seat with less than 4 minutes to go in the game and you
Right.
let it slip. To me, that is blowing a game. That is the definition of it. And it doesn't mean that everything is sky is falling. It just means that you blew it. You blew it.
Right.
And you'll never get it back. And it's one of those that you'll always look back on man, what if? And that's what
Right.
you hope it doesn't end up being at the end of the year. So that's why I think it was heartbreaking for me, at least. Like it was like, man, because they deserve to win the game, even though they didn't play their best game, which
Yeah.
shows me A, how far they've come, and B, I think they are the better team. They just didn't execute when it mattered the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear what you're saying. In a way,
Yeah.
yes, they did blow it. And so I understand that. But I guess when I hear, you blew the game, I instantly think of like a Stanford, something like that. It's a totally different category of that, where this was not a team that you should have beaten handily and you didn't win the football game. I just think this is one of those games. Yes, you blew it, but I also think you can take confidence
Okay.
from it, if that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah,
Hey, yes,
you should
absolutely.
feel bad about it, but you should also take confidence from it. I'll say this, like, I don't think that game, I keep referencing Stanford, and I know it's a totally different team, but like that Stanford game last year, was one that, like, they're not gonna. I mean, they never recover from that one. This one you
No.
can absolutely recover from, and there's still plenty in front of them, because this Big 12 is wide open. And I tweeted this out this morning as we're doing this, Matt. In the preseason, okay, you look at the Buff schedule. It's like, man, they got 5 ranked teams on their schedule in the preseason AP poll. Kansas
Mhm.
State's the only ranked team they're going to play this year.
Yeah, you and I both thought the Big 12 would be better than what people were saying. Turns out it's not.
Yeah,
Turns out we
because
were both wrong.
this week's opponent, Arizona, was in the top 25 in the preseason. Well, the Wildcats are a mess, and that's not a good football team. Now they could still beat the Buffs, but
They're
they're
still
not.
a favorite. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
but I'm saying they're a mess compared to what we thought in the regular season, right? In a few weeks they got Utah,
You were pretty high on them. You were pretty high on them, like
Arizona.
coming into the year. Yeah, weren't you?
Uh, I,
What did you have them in your preseason
I
poll?
had them I had them, I think, fifth in the Big
Okay,
12.
so not that high. I just
Yeah,
thought, hey, look, you lose your coaching staff and a bunch of key pieces. It's going to be hard, but they do have, arguably the best receiver in the country
right.
and a pretty good quarterback. So
Yeah, and we'll talk about them more in a little bit, but like,
yeah,
but like Utah, right? Look, Utah was one of those top 5. Like Utah, they're done. I mean, if
one more year,
right,
one more year
it looks like. I mean, it sounds like Cam Rising could be out for the rest of the year. That's
sucks.
potential, which
Yeah,
sucks for
I
him.
hate
But
that.
they suck without him. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, they're not
they're bad, and their defense is okay, but they're not
right.
Utah defense, right?
Right.
That's one thing. I'm a big admirer of Kyle Whittingham and what he's done. But if you look over the last several years during Cam Rising's time, he's never found that guy to come in and really, play well behind Cam Rising. So he's never found that second quarterback. But so they're not the same. Kansas was one of those preseason top 25.
Yeah.
Kansas stinks,
I mean, they're a disaster.
and they're a disaster. And then Oklahoma State was one of those top 25s who the Buffs end with. And again,
Disaster.
they could get it going again because there's enough talent there, but they're a disaster right now too. And so,
Did you sorry, did you hear about Gundy?
yeah,
That was hilarious. He was supposed to have his press conference, but it had to be held over Zoom because he
yeah,
got headbutted by a cow. So
yeah.
ain't nothing going right in Stillwater right now.
No,
It is
nothing's going.
all bad luck. Yeah.
You'd
Yeah.
like to play the Cowboys right now, but
Yeah.
but my point
Yeah.
is that this schedule, the second half of the schedule, which originally you looked at it, I'm like, man, that November is brutal. I'm looking at it
Right.
now, I'm like, I think they just had their toughest game of the year,
Which
and
is why this one sucks that you blew this. That's why to
yes,
me it is a
yes,
big
but
blown opportunity. I know you take confidence,
no, no,
whatever.
no. Listen,
You might pick your head up in a few months
no,
and
I
go,
get it, I get it.
That's why to
There's two
me,
sides
I
to it.
say, yeah.
There's two
Anyway, oh,
sides to it.
definitely you got to
Yes,
learn from it. Yeah,
yes, because of that, you're right. That's when
that's
you're
all
like,
I'm saying.
man, that was a great
That's all I'm
opportunity.
saying.
But I also think I look at the rest of it, and I don't know if they're going to win the last six, but they certainly very well could win the last six. And if you do that, if you go 5-1, 6-0 down the stretch, you're very much in this title race. And so,
Sure.
and the way the Big 12 goes, I'm trying to look at Kansas State. Like this week, K State goes to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
Tough game.
that's tougher than anything CU's got left. They got Kansas. That's a rivalry game, so who knows?
Texas Tech is going to be tough for the Buffs, I think.
I agree,
That's a
but
that's a good game.
like K State, like you know, they still got to go to Iowa State. They got to go to West Virginia. Those are tough games. You got Arizona State, who I still can't believe Arizona State's sitting where they are. But like, as long as
Cam
they're playing,
Scatabo.
as long as they're playing like this, you have to look at them and say, "Huh, all right, well, I guess you
If
got to
Tra-
take them seriously."
if Travis doesn't win the Heisman, I want it to go to Cam Scatabo just because he does everything for them. That's
Right.
all.
So, I mean, K State to me has the tougher schedule down the stretch, and so there's opportunities for the Buffs, is my point. And so, yes, it's disappointing. Yes, they probably did blow it, but I think it's also one you take confidence from as you go into the second half and say, we are a very good football team, and we can win every game down the stretch. Because look what we just did against who we think is the best team in the conference.
Yeah, and we're less than 48 hours removed from this, right? So
Yeah,
let's just put that out there. And that's why I said like this is one to me, at least for me, with close ones like that hurt way more than the giant blown opportunities. Because let's be
yeah,
real, with Stanford, if you're capable of blowing a 29-point lead, you're not a very good football team.
right.
Okay, in my opinion. And that's what it turned out to be at the end of the year. They had problems on problems on problems that all came to the surface, right? And they corrected a ton of those. And that's why they're in the position where they are, which to your point, and which is why you're right, that I think it's a testament to where they've come that you can even say that they blew that opportunity.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that, I didn't think, to be honest, at the beginning of the season, they might be there. Like I thought there were going to be some bumps in the road. Like I thought UCF was going to be a problem for them just because of the play style. Turns out the rush defense is actually legitimately improved, which is why it kind of stings a little bit even more that
Yeah.
was really let you down in this game more than anything. So, people, the one thing about Shiloh, let's talk about him just for a second. Like people are burying him, but he's their last line of defense. Now, couple of things. I don't really look at PFF. Okay. You know that about me. I have no idea who the hell is putting together these grades, but for whatever it's worth, it's the lowest PFF grade I've ever seen for an individual player in a single game. I don't use PFF,
It
but as
is.
far as
Yeah.
whatever,
It's the lowest defensive grade any Buff regular has had under Coach Prime.
oh, well, for sure. But the
There, there
reason
were
that
there were
he
worse ones in 2022, by the way.
I'm sure. Well, yeah, when you lose by an average of 30, that's not too hard. With players that are actually supposed to be playing at this level. Let's just put
Right.
it that way.
Right.
So it's their defensive line that got bullied. Like they got out
Right.
schemed, I felt like up front. And the reason he was in the position to have to make so many of those plays is because they kept getting blown off the ball. So while Shiloh took a lot of the brunt of it, the one benefit of the doubt I'll give him is that he was rusty, and DJ Giddens again is an animal. Like I went back and watched. I haven't seen the entire thing yet, but I watched parts of it because, like I said, we're like 35 hours or whatever it is removed at this point.
Yeah.
My point is that I'm watching, I'm going, oh my God, like trying to wrap this guy up would be a nightmare. Now, that being said, I didn't think their defense was flying around like Coach Prime said it was before the break. They certainly, I thought, had their worst game, and then losing Travis is a killer, certainly. So it just changes the way you play.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you like I said, you get beat there. So
Yeah. And for me on Shiloh, like the little bit I know of Shiloh, my guess is that he went into that game amped up and looking to make up for 3 games that he missed. And I want to make impactful plays. And he looked like he was looking for impactful plays to kind of make up for some 3 games. I ex- I expect Shiloh to be better after that, going
yeah,
forward. I don't think we'll see him play like that.
no.
Yeah, people have their opinions whether he's a great safety or not. I think he's a good safety. great. I
If he
don't know.
doesn't make undisciplined plays, I've been talking to NFL scouts about him now a little bit more and more because I've just kind of like keep my ear to the ground with that with
Yeah.
some of the guys that I do know.
Right.
And his technique is just it's just failing. Like it's you're taking your head off the ball, you're throwing your shoulder into guys, you're not wrapping up. And with a guy like that, how many times did DJ just bounce off of him? And Shiloh kept trying that. At a
Yeah.
certain point, put down your sword and wrap him up. Like there's like I think that part of it, and I respect that he's always trying to hit a home run, but that gets you beat. That gets you beat. And if again, he's not the reason they lost, but I mean he missed a ton of tackles. And I the other part of it is this. I'm sure it would have been a very tough decision, but I don't know how fair it was to Carter Stoutmeyer not to give him an opportunity to do a little bit better than that.
Yep.
And I think those are the moments, which is why I say I hope it's not a loss that splinters a little bit, because I think those are the moments where a team kind of looks at you and goes, you realize if I did that, my ass would have been on the bench so fast, your head would spin.
Yep.
And again, I'm not saying it wouldn't, but those are the moments where people go, okay, well, yeah, like I get what you're doing here, but it's so overt, and I know you don't want to make a big deal about it, but it's not to everybody else watching. It's to the guys on the sideline watching that go, well, clearly there's a different set of rules for those guys. And again, it would have been a really tough call to make, but it was a tough call that needed to be made at a certain point, and it wasn't, unfortunately. And
Well,
again, Shiloh did come up late though, and did save a touchdown. So I did. He did get better, and I know he will get better. But the fact is, that's a moment where the team can have a legitimate argument when they look at their coach and say, "There's a different standard." And and
I
and,
agree.
and
And
I feel for them. Sorry.
I don't necessarily think it would have been a tough decision. I mean, to me, I look at, last year, like it would have been tough to like figure out, okay, if a corner's struggling, like if Amari Cooper's struggling, where do we turn to? Because like, what do we have behind him? This was a situation where it's like, okay, if Shiloh's struggling, we got Carter Stoutmeyer who's been playing some pretty good football. We got a guy sitting on the bench right now that's been playing well for us the last
I
few
know.
weeks.
I know.
To
He's
me,
still
I
a
mean,
son, Brian. He's
I
still a son. And with
I
him, that
agree.
matters.
I
That
that's
matters.
I agree with that point, but I'm saying that's why it shouldn't have been a tough choice, because you have to put that aside in that moment and say, yep, for the good of the team, Carter needs to be in there right now. And
For whatever it's worth, Mike McIntyre would have done that if Jay ever played that badly. Sit down. No, we'll go to somebody. I'm just saying, like I've seen that before, where
yeah,
you've had situations where, hey, you're not playing well. Like, sit down. Like it is what it is. And in that moment, it was kind of unfair to everybody else, is what it felt like. Just because, hey, you don't have it. Like this ain't your night. This ain't your
yeah,
night. You're clearly not back to ready yet. Let's get you working more a little bit in practice this week to get you ready. This is for
yeah.
your own good, because
Well, and
by leaving him out there,
yeah,
he put a ton of terrible tape out there.
and Coach Prime knew what was going on, because his answer to that question was he played horrible.
Yep.
So he knew it, he saw it. Yeah, a
And he knew
change
he'd
should have
get
been
ripped
made.
for it.
Yeah,
He knew he'd get ripped for keeping him out there too.
but I will say again, on the flip side, I think Shiloh will be better going forward. I think
So do I.
this is a awesome growth opportunity for him. He should learn from that one. I expect him to be better team wise. Now, Matt, let's shift gears, because we talk about, and we can argue whether this was a blown opportunity. Well, it was a blown opportunity, but where they go
Period.
from here, right,
Yep.
is now we find out this week, right?
Yep.
So this is a huge one, because do you let that loss become two, or do you say, you know what, we should have had that one. Let's go get
Yeah.
it back in Tucson, because this is a golden opportunity against a wounded team right now, a struggling team, that you can go down to Tucson and get a win.
Where are we at with injuries? That's my number one question. And I think Shadur
Right.
after the game even said that too, because I asked him about, hey, look, everything's still in front of you. He brought up injuries because Shadur knows if you don't have
Yeah.
Travis, season ends up looking different. Okay. Hopefully Travis comes back. I mean, God bless my mom. That's all she's been asking me. How's Travis? How's Travis?
Yeah.
And everybody's concerned, obviously, because he is who he is. But I just thought it was a strange play to leave the game on. I didn't even notice that he got hurt on that play until I watched it later.
Yeah.
And then obviously losing Jimmy and Omarion. And even still, Brian, losing all three of those guys, they still had enough. Like I still think with you still, excuse me, have Will Shepard and LeJontay, and you still have Terrell Timmons, and like you still have enough talent, Draylon, and you still have enough talent, but it was the fourth one that it was like, oh my God. Like
Yeah,
Shador's kind of looking around and going, oh God, now I gotta throw to, Jordan O, who's made plays in camp, but this is the biggest moment of the game, our biggest moment of our season right now.
right,
Where do you go from here? This is why I say, does it splinter? And I think this is just another week for Coach Prime to bring everybody in tighter together and get over this one as a collective to make sure you don't lose focus.
right,
That's all, because everything still is in front of you, but your margin for error is thinner. So it
right.
should be, there's pressures on, is what I'm saying. Because you can still have a good season if you don't compete for the Big 12 title. But while you're still in it, you better be going for it. And that's what they feel like inside. And you just got to make sure you keep everybody tighter because the season gets harder as it gets later.
Yeah, I don't see this team splintering at all on this. I think it's gonna be tougher if you and we don't know.
Injury,
Travis and
buddy.
Jimmy could be back, but I will say this: yes, Travis Hunter's the best player in the country, um, but Shador would be a tougher loss
Oh, of course.
than Travis. And so, uh, if you don't have Travis and Jimmy, man, I look at it and you still got LeJounte Wester, you still got Will
Offensively.
Shepard. Those are two guys that are number one receivers. There's a guy, Cordell Russell has not played yet this year. Coach was asked about him after the game. He goes, "Yeah, I think he's ready." He was actually in warmups, but then didn't dress for the game. Um,
Yeah.
look out for
He
him.
made he made a play in that open scrimmage that was a big deep
Yeah,
ball that he caught that I was like, oh, he's got something, and he's a big body.
right. There's, I mean,
Yeah.
Assad Wasim.
Hmm.
I mean, there's some guys,
They
Caleb
can make
Mathis we
plays.
have not seen yet, but he and Shador have a good rapport with each other. So uh, offensively, I don't worry about it. Defensively, I think it's a bigger loss, especially this week when you got Tetro McMillan. Um, can DJ McKinney handle that? We'll see. But
Big test.
I still like, you know what? I'll tell you this. I still really like DJ McKinney and Colton Hood. If that's your two, I still feel pretty good about it. Not as good as Travis and DJ, but I
And
still
Hodge.
feel, oh yeah, you still got Hodge, but I mean on the outside, like, you know, if you don't have Travis, I still like the group. It's just way better with Travis. And so I still think they're okay. I think they can get through the next couple of weeks if they have to get through without Travis and Jimmy. I think there's enough. That's where they're different from last year is they got depth
They got
at both
depth,
those
but
spots.
they have to cover differently. Like
They
that's
do.
why they got
Right.
they got beat at the
Right.
end because of that.
Right.
Because they call the play as if they still had Travis Hunter in there. In my
Right.
opinion, like you can kind of get away with doing a little bit more of that. And I understand, like Preston Hodge, in my opinion, is a top 10 corner in college. I think he is. I think he was in
Mhm.
pretty good position to make that play. The ball just got through him. Like
Right.
I don't. I mean, he's kind of trailing, but that's kind of it's not a bad position to be in right there. And so he just gets beat, and it is what it is. It's not your day, but it maybe if there's safety help, it prevents Avery Johnson from wanting to go there. And I think without Travis, you just have
Mhm.
to call a little bit more of a conservative back end plan. That's all, in my opinion.
But
So
I also think there can be a difference in you've got a week to prepare for that. And like if they know Travis isn't playing, which they may
yeah,
not tell us, but
it's a good point.
they're gonna know today or tomorrow if Travis is playing, I assume.
I
And
honestly hope they don't tell us. That's a good competitive advantage thing to
right,
make
but I
to
mean,
make
but
Arizona have to prepare for all
my
that.
point is that they'll know. And so, Preston Hodge can have a week to prepare for being in that spot, or Colton Hood can or whatever. So I still think they're going to be okay. And especially, man, Arizona right now, again, they're a mess. And Fafita is not playing good football right now. And so, and
No, yeah.
which McMillan is fantastic, but he's limited when your quarterback's not playing very well.
Well, and look, they still have Lamonius Craig, who's a nice receiver, and he'll be motivated. I'm sure getting that game
Yeah.
his last year in college at home. I'm sure he'll be plenty motivated, and so you'll be aware of that. But yeah, I mean, it's not like Jonah Coleman is still there. He left to go to Washington. Jonah killed them last year,
Yeah.
so I think that's important. But also, I'm with you. It's one of those that you really shouldn't be losing. If you're still in the Big 12 race, you go to
Mhm.
Tucson and win. That is what I know about this game. Yet I still think it's going to be a challenge because Teteroa McMillan is one of the best players in the country. In my opinion, is
Right.
probably the
Mhm.
best receiver in the country. He's a stud. You know what he reminds me of a lot of Michael Pittman Jr., but like a more athletic version of him almost.
Yeah.
Out of USC. So I'm anticipating a bit of a shootout down there in the desert.
Yeah, somewhat of one. I think CU's defense will have a much better game
I hope
than they did
so.
against Kansas State. I don't think Arizona's offense is anywhere as good as Kansas State's, especially the way they are right now. I mean, they're just they don't know what they're doing on offense right now. They're lost, and so if they're going to put up enough points there in a shootout, I think that's a problem for the CU defense. So I think CU's defense, is set up to have a solid game here.
A bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, Fafita's thrown at least one pick every game. He's
Yeah.
thrown five in the last two games, and so now
It's
a lot,
Arizona, though. I
a
feel like
lot,
they always have some wacky games
right.
against this
A
school.
lot of Buff fans would say, "Well, yeah, and that means he's primed to have a phenomenal game and not throw a pick this week," and they may be right. I mean, Arizona's got the talent to win this football game, and CU certainly cannot, walk in there and say, "Yep, we got this one in the bag." But I think, to me, CU is a better football team right now, and they should go down there and win. But it's not going to be easy.
They should have beaten them last year. They had it in
Yeah,
the bag last year, and they blew that
yeah,
one too.
yeah.
Um, yes, it's not going to be easy. I've got CU. Like I talk about, could be a splintering loss. Like that's just something you have to guard against. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? I'm not talking about like I'm predicting that. I'm just saying it's something you have to guard against. But
right,
we also have to point to situations like we talked about with Shiloh, right? Like I think he'll play better. I believe in Shiloh. He led the country in forced fumbles last year. You just have to pick and choose. You can't be swinging for the fences all the time. Otherwise, you'll end up like Javier Baez. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it's a baseball reference for anybody who is college football and a baseball fan.
Yeah,
Just taking big swings all the time. You've got to be a little bit more fundamental, and you got to show scouts now that you can wrap up now instead of just throwing the
right.
shoulder. Everybody knows you can hit guys hard. Everybody knows that. You've got to prove now, if you're Shiloh, that you can do the other stuff. That's the most important because his
Yeah,
reputation precedes him. Sorry, it's just the truth. From the guys I've talked to, I'm not pulling my punches. You got 6 games left here to prove that you're NFL caliber. You've got to show it. And so, like, I want that for him. That's why I say, like, just dial it back a little bit and be a little bit more fundamental. Like, that is something that I'm hearing.
mhm,
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that. So, the other part of it is I agree with you that this should be a bounce back for the defensive line, more specifically than anything.
right.
Like I said, I've got Colorado winning. I don't know if we're doing predictions yet, but I definitely have the Buffs in this game. I don't
Yeah,
think it will splinter them.
let's throw out predictions real quick, and then we're gonna do real quick some midseason.
Oh, yeah.
So just
Okay.
give me your thought. Well, what's the score prediction for you?
Give me Colorado 34-27 in this game. On the
Okay.
road, still give up some points. I think McMillan, especially without Hunter. If it's with Hunter, I don't see a reason why you can't replicate what you did at UCF if they get back to running the football. If
Yeah.
they get back to using the 11, this is a game where I expect a lot of 11 personnel and I expect a lot of Augusta and Welch with Hayden sprinkled in there. That's what I expect. So if that's not the case, it's not the case, and they feel differently. So we're going to find out what happens. They're at their best when they're methodical, when they are in 11 personnel, when they're passing to set up the run, right, with the quick game. Like they got to
Mhm.
tighten everything up this week, and I think there's no reason they should have any problem beating Arizona. I was actually surprised after how Arizona's played lately that they're a favorite.
Yeah, I was too. I mean that's being at home, I guess. I think if the game was in Boulder, CU would be favored. I
You're back to everybody not believing it anymore, I
right.
guess. I mean,
Yeah,
all 5 picked
yeah.
them on College game day. Maybe CU's just in a better spot when nobody believes in them.
Right, right. I got the best win in this one. I'm gonna go 35-24. I think it's two score. Um, I'm making that prediction thinking Travis doesn't play. If Travis does play, I could see it being like you said. I could see it being somewhat like UCF, to where it's even worse than that.
Yeah.
And again, I do think Arizona's capable of winning this game, but from what I'm seeing from Arizona right now, they shouldn't be able to beat the Buffs. And so I'm gonna go see you 35-24.
Okay, you've got 35-24. I've got 34-27. We,
Yeah,
we we both have this offense continuing to roll even without 3 of their top 6 receivers.
right.
So,
Because
I
you
mean,
still got two number ones. So
non-believers we are.
yeah,
Non-believers we are.
non-believers, haters.
Yeah,
Um,
haters, Brian.
let's wrap this up by doing some quick mid-season
Okay, let's
awards.
do it.
Now let's do this. You know, I like to do this in this case with this team, taking Shador and Travis out of it because it's clear Shador and Travis are the two best players on this team. Offensive player of the year, it's going to be one of those two guys, right?
How
To this
about we
point,
leave them in it and award trophies without Travis as well? Let's leave them minutes, say
Okay,
which
fine.
one we'd pick, and then we'll award them without it.
All
Because
right.
that's how you bet. Like in golf, if you enter a final round on a Sunday and some guy's got like a 7-shot lead, it's like bet
Right.
the winner without Scheffler. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's what
Okay.
we'll do.
All right. Offensive player of the year to this point.
This is tough. I think it's got to be Travis to me, and that is saying that with the utmost respect for what Shador has done. I don't know. Maybe it's Shador. Maybe it's Shador because he makes the whole thing go. And Travis wouldn't look like what Travis looks like in a lot of ways, in my opinion, offensively because of their connection without Shador. So give me Shador because I still think at the end of the day he's going to be the number one overall pick anyway.
Yeah.
I think he's the most valuable player in the country.
Yeah. I go Shador for the reason you just said is that he makes the thing go. And, you know, not having Travis the second half the other day proved to me why it's Shador because they
Yeah,
still
yeah,
were in position and, you could argue should have won that game. And so to me,
sure,
it's
sure.
Shador. So who's the non-Travis, non-Shador offensive player of the year?
Got to be Wester right now.
I would think
Does
so.
it
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really big game and probably didn't get enough love for how he played the other night. He was probably his best game the other night. Although he has not been a good punt returner. We're halfway
No.
into it now. I am not pulling my punches there either. He's not been good. I don't know what's going on. They ought to try somebody else. There was like a couple the other night where I thought to myself, "You're not giving that one a go," and I
Yeah.
respect because you God, Brian, the last thing you want to do is turn the ball over before you're about to give it to Shador Sanders. Okay. So I respect the whole catching it. But if he's going to be out there, I'd like to see a little something, right? Every now and again, or not. Maybe try somebody else. He
Yeah.
just is, it's looked shaky this year to me. And that was not my expectation.
Yeah. I agree with all that. Wester to me is the non-Travis, non-Shador offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year.
You let me say the tough things without even acknowledging them.
No,
Okay.
I I have nothing to say against that. I totally agree with it.
Okay.
I mean, well,
Okay.
as far as Wester as a punt returner though, I've thought this many times. I'm like, man, the punt coverage in that conference he was in last year must have been terrible.
He must have been awful. He
because
must have had a day and a half back there.
as much as I love the kid and when I've talked to him, I chat with him and his brother at media day and they were awesome.
Oh, he's an amazing
Love
person.
those kids.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's not an all-American punt returner.
I mean, he was voted preseason All American. Like,
Right. Well,
this isn't me trying to bag on the kid. He was literally named preseason All
he was
American.
named an All-American last year by a couple places as a punt returner. So
I
I'm
just
like,
haven't seen All American as a punt
yeah,
returner. That's all.
that conference must not have had good punt coverage. But so yeah, I agree with all that. That's why I'm not saying anything back. I'm like, yep, totally
Well, we
agree.
still said he's the offensive MVP
Right. He's had a
outside of
phenomenal
Shador
year.
and Travis. Yeah.
He's had a phenomenal season so far. As he's not putting up the numbers he put up last year. Nobody thought that, but the touchdowns are there. He's making impactful plays. So
Big time.
defensive side of the ball. You went first on offense. I'll go first on defense.
Yeah, please.
I do think it's Travis on
Well,
defense. You know, so I mean, do you agree with that?
yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, Travis is the obvious one. So the non-Travis defensive player of the year to this point. I think there's a few candidates, but I might go Nakai Hill Green just because I think that him getting into the starting lineup week 2 changed their defense quite a bit. And
Mm.
he's brought some attitude and he's brought a different mentality to the middle of that defense. And so I might go with him, but I don't think there's a clear cut choice
I
here.
do.
You
I
do?
do.
Okay.
Mhm. It's Cam. To me, it's
Oh
Cam.
yeah. Okay.
Which to me, the reason why I say it,
You're right.
I just didn't think, I didn't think he was going to be this good before the year. Like he was a
Yeah.
nice player last year, but we've seen some really good safeties. Like even when CU's been bad over this stretch, we've
Mhm.
seen some very good safeties roll through the program. And he just, to me, wasn't even like among some of these top guys. And now the leadership that he brings and just, I mean, I was shocked he didn't get Dylan Edwards down on that play near the goal line. That really surprised me. That was a big moment for Dylan. I thought that was even more rewarding. I thought for Dylan than the touchdown was because
Yeah.
that moment. Anyway,
He didn't have
but
a
no,
great game on Saturday though either. I didn't
he
think
had a big
Cam did.
sack. He had a big sack. There were a couple of big moments that he made, and no, it wasn't his best game, but he's still been their best player. To me, it would either be him, Hill Green, just not enough to me overall. Like some good moments, but just not enough on a consistent basis to me. He was important in their wins in their 3 wins, but the other ones, I mean, there are other games too. I'd probably say Hodge. Like Hodge got burned, so it's
Really?
tough.
Hmm.
Hodge got burned, but other than that, he's been making. I mean, how many receptions has he given up this year? Not too many. I mean, not too many
Yeah.
impactful ones. He's had what, 2 picks, like what, 2 or 3 pass breakups, 3 at least big ones.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a
He's up
couple
there.
of,
And Cokes would
yeah.
be, and Cokes would be my other one. So
Well, I
because
think
I just think he's the unsung hero of this defense to me.
I wouldn't say Coke's even been the best defensive lineman. I think Chidozie has been
He just hasn't
when
played
he's
enough.
healthy. He's what he missed 2 games,
I
two
think
games.
so,
So
right? Or a
when
game and
he's
a
played
half.
though, I think that he's a beast.
I
Um,
agree.
how about newcomer of the year? That could be half the team I know.
Mm,
First time buff, newcomer of the year. I mean, Wester.
probably. Probably. I mean, it would be Wester, McKinney, or Hodge to me, or Hill Green. So it would be any. It would be any of them. You know what? I probably would have to say Hill Green because I did not know what they were going to do at second at that other linebacker spot, and that's a
Yeah,
position they could not figure out all year. And to get a guy like that, who I think is so perfect coming out of the portal, like that's the guy you want, and the impact that he's made, because we didn't know they were like, is Trevor going to be that guy? And so it would probably be him, newcomer. I'd probably have to give it to him because I think even if it weren't LeJohntay, it would be somebody else. I just think
yeah,
LeJohntay's had the most opportunity there outside of Travis offensively.
yeah. By the way, just to go back, I am changing my defensive player of the year to Cam to agree with you because
Okay, yeah.
as I was thinking, I was like, how did I forget Cam? So yes, I agree with
Okay,
you on
so we
that.
both said Cam, and
Yeah,
then newcomer of the year would be Hill Green
yeah.
or Jordan
I'm going
Seaton.
Wester. I'm going Wester, but you'll
I
go Hill
might go
Green.
Seaton. I might go Seaton.
Well, no, let's go to the next category.
Okay.
Rookie of the year
Okay.
at
Okay.
this
Okay.
point, which would be to me count red shirts, guys that maybe were here last year that red shirted, but guys that are playing for the first time.
You
So that would
first.
be, I think,
There's not a ton of them.
trying to think off the top of my head, but the way he's played lately, now it's only been the last couple games, but Tajay McCoy
Mm.
has been fantastic the last couple weeks. Now he didn't get much of an opportunity before that, and so it's hard to put him in there, but he's proving to be a really good player.
I like that one. I'd probably go with Zelinskis. I mean, if you're gonna count, I know Zelinskis played at the end of last year a little
Yeah,
bit.
I don't put him in
If
that
I could,
category.
okay, so you don't put him in that category. That's
No,
fine
because
with me.
he didn't redshirt. He played
Oh,
every
because he
game
didn't
last year.
redshirt. Well, you're just
So
saying best redshirt.
no, rookie of the year has got to be someone that is either a
Then I'd
true
go with
freshman
Seaton.
or redshirt freshman. They're
I'd
freshmen.
probably go with Seaton.
Okay,
Yeah. I
that's
mean, he's the
probably
number one tackle in the country.
yeah,
He's looked every bit the part. Now there's been some shaky moments, but we knew there would be. But there are some moments where, I mean, Jordan Seaton has made more plays this year that would go on the Colorado offensive line highlight reel over the last 10 than anybody I've seen.
yeah,
Like, there's just some where you're just, oh my God. In the
right,
first day I met him, I felt like he was going to be, I could see what he's going to look like in his gold jacket. Like, that's the type of talent he possesses. So for me, it would be impossible. And he's protecting Shador's blind side. And yeah, Shador's got sacked, but it's not been because they're coming off the blind side and drilling him from behind. That's really,
yeah.
I mean, it hasn't been that. So,
All right. One last thing. I guess we'll go just team wise. Game of the year to this point.
like
Best game.
best game or
Best
who's
game.
had individually or overall?
Just overall as a team. The best game.
Do you have one that sticks out? I mean, probably UCF. I mean, definitely
Well,
UCF.
UCF was the best performance. I'm gonna go Baylor because I think that one now they didn't win Kansas State, I know, but I think that coming back and beating Baylor in some ways saved the season a little bit.
It did. Oh, it did. Yeah, no, it did. It just was an important one. It showed that you were, for real, and it was really lucky.
Right.
But it's kind of like the same thing. I felt very similar to the Baylor game after Kansas State. It was like the margin for error between win and a loss is so thin, and this is a perfect example of it breaking the other way on you.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of football. There was this weird feeling I had all game that it just wasn't their day. Like it was just, oh, they're not getting that break and that break. And then they started to get them,
Right.
which is why I felt like it was heartbreaking that they didn't win because it was all turning your way and just two really egregious breakdowns. And
Right.
it got you beat when you put in so much work. And I think the phrase I used the other night was the game was just a couple of minutes long for Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if
It
it ended
was.
2 minutes
Yeah.
earlier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So
anyway,
what's your choice for game of the year? Would you go UCF? UCF was their best performance.
definitely UCF. Yeah, I'd go UCF.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It was the
Yeah,
best
it was the
performance.
most rewarding. It was
Yeah.
because it was the clearest indication that they were on the right track, that we've gotten to this point. And then it proved itself. It just did it in a loss this week.
Yeah.
They proved they have more depth. They proved they're better. They proved they're more resilient. They're mentally tougher, right? They are more physical. They're just not quite there yet. And despite all of it, they still should have won, in my opinion.
Yeah. And last thing before we get out of here,
Yeah.
what was your preseason prediction for their record?
I had 7-5. I had 67
Okay.
wins and I landed 7-5. And right now, if they got the five, I'd be pretty surprised.
Okay. So I had 7-5 as well. So I want to
Mhm.
ask you, and I'll answer the same thing.
Yeah.
Halfway through the season, is your prediction changed? Or do you still think they're going to land at 7-5?
Let's see. Win, 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 win. I've got them right now at 9-3.
Yeah. That's where
That's crazy to me. If and this is provided that sorry, I'm just going through and doing the math on what I think they're as it stands right now. I probably have them at 9-3. I would say I unless they lost on the road. I mean, they just don't have many. We don't have many road trips left. We've got Arizona.
right.
We've got I guess three of the six are on the road, but I just don't think Lubbock. I think is going to be hard. I think Lubbock is going. They're going to have a hard time winning there as long as they're healthy. My opinion, just my
Yeah.
opinion. But Kansas, they shouldn't have that hard of a time with the Kansas team provided they stay healthy. And again, who knows? Like a lot of this could change if Travis has got to miss a couple of weeks.
Right.
So who knows?
I agree with you. I mean, I think that they at least match the 4-2 in the second half. So I think they're at least 8-4,
Oh.
and I could see nine and
Now,
three.
now, feels like it's probably worth mentioning that the only time the back half of a season that has started like this has gone well in the last whatever amount of years was 2016. Outside of that, every point we have felt pretty confident about some of the teams. Like what 2017 they started what 5-0?
Yep.
Lost every game after that. McIntyre got fired,
Or was it?
or was that the next
20. That
year?
was 2018.
That was 2018. The
Yeah.
point is we've seen a lot of 5-7s that got the bulk of those on the first half.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't think that just because they're 4-2 right now means it's a guarantee they're going 4-2 because we've been burned many a time. Now I think this team is different, but you never
Right.
know. Injuries pop up,
But that's
God forbid Shador
right.
goes down, but I guess we're just projecting, best case scenario.
Right.
But in fact, it's football. It's almost rarely best case scenario. It's kind of
And
I just want to point that
right.
out.
And you can't project injuries.
No.
I have no idea. Have not heard anything about what's going on with Travis and Jimmy.
No.
Both of them were still in uniform and not even really talking to doctors, medical personnel during that second half. I looked over there several times and they were both on the sidelines cheering guys on. So they don't look serious injuries. It's hard to tell. There could be internal stuff. So I would not think they're out too long. This is the best team since 2016 also. I mean, those teams, the 2018 team that was 5-0 is not this good.
Mm-mm.
They were one player. They had other good players, but they were so much Laviska Chenault.
Yeah.
That
Which
and
shout out to LaVisca for the kick return touchdown the other night for Seattle. That was awesome to see.
and he was at Folsom the other night too.
I heard about that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't get
so
a chance to catch up with him.
but Laviska, that's a guy too, eerily similar to what's going on here. Through 5 games in 2016 and through 5 games of this year, CU had a leading Heisman candidate. Game
I've thought
6,
about that tons of times.
Game 6, Laviska got hurt. Game 6, Travis got hurt. Laviska never got back in the Heisman race, missed several games, and CU never recovered. Let's hope that doesn't repeat itself. But when they lost Laviska, they didn't have much else. Whereas this team, you lose
They got
Travis,
plenty.
and yes, it stinks. You've got much better people around Travis Hunter. I think this team is closer to 2016 than any other team that we've covered. So that's why I think, and especially when I look at the schedule, as we talked about before, these teams on the back half of the schedule are not what we thought they were going to be.
Mm-mm.
I think I would almost be disappointed if they don't go 8-4
Oh, yeah,
with
big
when I look at
time.
this schedule, and and I look at 9-3, and I don't think 10-2 is out of the question.
I don't either. I don't either. It's just gonna be. I'm gonna go like again. I don't really care what anybody says. I got a lot of past history here up here that I gotta see.
Yeah,
Stuff actually translate in front of me before I'm. And I still said 9-3, which is why I felt like it probably ought to be said that we are halfway through the season, and many different times before we've seen it go terribly from here. So
yep,
you never know what can
yep,
happen, is kind of my point. And we have felt decent. As you brought up, that 2018 team, if LaVisca stays healthy, I think we all feel pretty good about where they were going to be at. At least
yeah.
I did, at least for making a bowl game for sure.
Oh yeah,
This team,
yeah.
this team has much bigger capability than that, which is why Kansas State's loss was heartbreaking because
Right.
it just makes it harder now. Like you have less margin for error. I was going to ask you specifically though about Travis and the Heisman. Is that officially out the door now, you think?
Oh no, I don't think so. Now, if he misses
Yeah.
this week and next week, I mean, if you only play 9 games or if you only play 10 games, then maybe. But I don't think that puts him out of the race. I think if he's back this week and he puts
Mm-hmm.
up 100 yards
Yeah.
and he has a really good game against Teterow
Agreed.
McMillan, yeah, you're right back in there.
I just don't
So
think you can miss another game.
no, you probably not. I think that, and this, it's tough timing because this is a really good opportunity to prove yourself as a corner against who you said is maybe the best receiver in college football. This is an opportunity if you play to shut down the best receiver in college football, and then also
Yep.
go show that maybe you're the best receiver in college football.
100%.
So
100%. I think it would have been the best one-on-one matchup individually in the country this year, my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
Except for maybe Will Johnson and Jeremiah Smith
Oh,
or something like that.
our buddy Yogi Roth from Pac-12 Network from days past. I was on his podcast this summer, and he was like, "I cannot wait for October and that game in Tucson with McMillan against Hunter." And now we may not see it, so we'll
Right.
see. Let's hope we do. We don't know
Yep.
anything about Travis at this point as far as his status, but Heisman, yeah, still very much in the running. He may certainly took a dent this last week, but there's half the season left. He can totally get back in it.
Is Shador not in the running?
Well, I
I
think
just
this
feel
is
like he gets slighted all the time.
yes, but I will say this: I do think that as long as Travis is the front runner or
Yeah.
in the top few, I think it's gonna be hard for Shador to get in there, just because you've got other quarterbacks in there as well, and they're not going to put two buffs in New York, right? But
They
I
should.
think they
If they go
should
like 10, if they go 10-2 and both of them aren't there, it's heresy.
possibly. But I will say this: let's say Travis has to miss time, now I think Shador.
Re-enters it.
If Shador is leading them to wins without Travis,
Good point. Yeah.
now Shador, you have to look at him differently,
You
in my
do,
opinion.
even though Shador still has a bunch of other number ones with Shepard and
Absolutely.
Western and Horn. Like it may actually work out to his benefit there because he's got
Absolutely.
still tons of talent. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question though. It's a good question. I did listen to RJ Young, that guy who does college football for Fox. He had a really interesting video on it about how they just have never given the Heisman to a guy like Janty before. Even if he
Yeah.
smashes all the rushing records, it's just that you're typically not going to get, what is it, 600 Heisman voters to vote for a guy who's not playing at one of the power conferences. Just doesn't happen. I think the last time it happened was like 1960. I
Right.
think that was it. So I don't know. It just, to me, it seems like he's going to have to
Right.
have. Although the other day he was, what did he have, like 220 yards or
But
240 yards and two
that's the
touchdowns?
thing. Like, I don't think CSU plays Boise, but talking to
No, they got lucky.
yes, but talking to people that my point is talking to
Yeah,
people that cover CSU, they're looking at it and saying, CSU might be able to run the table in the Mountain West. I'm like, really? So if the Mountain West is that bad, that totally, in my opinion, dents Austin
100%.
Jennings. It's like, yeah, those are phenomenal numbers, but like, come on, man. Like, I know I know he did it against Oregon too, and I don't want to take anything away from him, but
He's a
that
stud. Make no
he's an
mistake.
absolute
He's a
stud.
star.
I'm
Yeah.
not questioning him as a player.
There's
I'm just
politics
saying
involved here.
when you put up those numbers in that conference, and sometimes the Mountain West is a pretty good conference. It's not this year,
Mm-mm.
and I think those numbers are, there's an asterisk by those numbers a little bit because not an asterisk, but a question mark by those numbers because um, Mountain West.
As a Heisman ballot voter yourself, what would your top five be?
Well, Travis is up there. Genty's up there. Got to have Cam Ward up there. Um,
You still
Milrow,
got Milrow?
I guess.
I'd put Shador over Milrow.
Yes, I put Shador over there. I mean, Dylan Gabriel.
Maybe, probably have to. How about Lanning with that win? What a massive win
That
that
was
was for
huge.
Oregon's program.
That was
I
huge.
did not enjoy seeing them win that game at home, but it was like, okay, that's a big deal for Oregon to beat Ohio State the first
Right,
time they play them in the Big Ten. That's a huge deal for them.
right.
He's already killing it, and I don't want to give Lanning many compliments, but he is a heck of a coach, and he's already killing it in recruiting.
Yeah,
That's only going to help him more.
it's too bad that Quinn Ewers missed some games because he would be up there too. He didn't play enough games.
I think he'd have fallen out eventually. I'm not a huge Quinn guy.
Well, but
They did dismantle Oklahoma the other day and should have beat them by way more.
he's the quarterback
So,
of the number one team in the country.
oh, I
So,
get it. I get it. I
he
get it.
would be up there. But yeah, those probably I mean, you have to look at Dylan Gabriel different now. But and you're right, I'd probably put Shador over. I mean, these last 2 weeks
I would personally.
these last 2 weeks have hurt Milrow,
hmm For
you know,
sure.
and
They may have won this week, but did anybody think it looked good
right,
against South Carolina?
right,
No,
no.
no.
So yeah, might have two buffs in the top five right now.
I would be. I mean, I watch college football every week, and to me, as far as offense, these two at their position are
Yeah,
doing it at a higher level than just about anybody.
right. Yeah,
In my opinion, than everybody, except for maybe offensively. I think McMillan might be just like a notch above Travis with his size and his ability after catch, because that's the one thing I think he might have over Travis, just his ability to just get rid of you. And still, I mean, if people haven't watched Tet McMillan's midseason highlights, and I'm
yeah.
not saying he's a better player than Travis, I'm just saying some of his ability is elite, like top of the NFL stuff. I think he's gonna be a beast at the next level.
Fafita better start playing better if
Yeah.
McMillan's going to get any Heisman love, though.
No, I don't think he's getting Heisman. I think that Bolitnikoff is what he would be looking for.
Right, but he might get. There's always like 20 guys that get votes. I'm just saying.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, I'm not
Yeah.
saying in New York or anything like that, but like to get some love for that Heisman, he's got to. He needs his quarterback to step up for him a little bit.
Well,
But
hopefully it's not this week.
that's right.
Hopefully
Well,
he
Matt,
looks awful this week,
right. Well, and hopefully it's because Travis, makes him look
or
awful.
not.
But
I just want him to look awful one way or another,
right.
Travis or not.
Yeah, but we also want
I
Travis to
get
be the
it.
one
I
to
get
make
it.
him
I
look
get
bad
it. I get
because
it.
then it helps everything. So,
I get it.
Matt, we'll see later this week. We got some media availability in Boulder this week, and then I'll see you in Tucson.
Sounds good, buddy.